You didn't know it then. How could you? You were just a child, maybe only months old, still learning the shape of your own breath. But something eternal passed between you and him in a single glance. The man you would call father looked down at you, and in that moment, the weight of something divine sank into his chest. Not fear, not shame, recognition. A soul deep knowing that the child he helped bring into this world was carrying something far beyond what he was ever prepared for. And from that moment on, he began to retreat, not because he didn't care, but because he couldn't comprehend. Chosen one, you've likely replayed it in your mind 1,000 times. Not the memory itself, but the ache beneath it, the distance, the disappearing, the quiet steps away from your life that never quite made sense. Everyone told you stories. He wasn't ready. He couldn't handle the pressure. He was broken himself. But none of that ever felt complete because you felt something else behind it. A mystery no one around you was willing to say out loud. That your father knew something about you, something sacred, and instead of stepping closer to it, he stepped away. There are certain lights that people can't look directly at without flinching. You were one of them. He didn't leave because you weren't enough. He left because he saw too much. There was a night, you felt it in your dreams, when he stood over your crib and whispered something under his breath, a prayer, a confession, or maybe a warning to himself, but heaven heard it, angels recorded it, and your soul, even in its earliest formation, felt it press inward like a seed planted in silence. Since then, there's been a hunger in you for answers you couldn't name, a subtle ache that rises during Father's Day commercials or when someone mentions what they learned from their dad. You weren't just missing his presence, you were chasing a code, because his absence wasn't random, it was orchestration. The enemy tried to convince you it was rejection, but heaven has been trying to tell you it was redirection. That moment he looked at you differently. It cracked something open. He didn't just see a baby. He saw legacy, frequency, prophecy wrapped in flesh. And somewhere deep in his bones, he knew he couldn't stay. Some call it cowardice. But you, chosen one, will come to know it as calibration. You needed space to become what he could never train. You needed distance to discover the lineage he couldn't carry. The day he looked at you differently was the day heaven marked you. It wasn't loud the way he left. There was no door slammed, no final argument, no monologue explaining why he couldn't stay. Just silence. A silence that lingered long after the front door closed, long after his voice stopped echoing in the house. And yet somehow, that silence spoke the loudest. You felt it, not just in the air, but in your DNA. It wrapped around you like a second skin, invisible to others, but heavy to carry. And for most of your life, you assumed that silence meant you weren't worth an explanation, but chosen one. What if I told you that silence was never empty? It was encoded. He didn't know how to love something holy. He didn't know how to father a frequency. The world around him never taught him how to raise someone with a cosmic assignment. And so instead, he left you with the only thing he could offer, space wrapped in silence. And that silence, it became your classroom. You learned to listen in the stillness. You learned to feel the shift in rooms when no one said a word. You learned to sense danger, feel energy, track people's truth without them ever confessing it. His silence became your antenna. What others missed in noise, you heard in vibration. This wasn't abandonment. This was calibration. You were being tuned to something higher. And the very void he left became the space where the voice of God would begin to speak. You weren't fatherless. You were father forged. Heaven knew that if you were surrounded by noise, you might miss the whisper. So it gave you silence. And that silence, it built your discernment. It carved the hollows in your soul where prophecy now echoes. He never knew it, but by leaving, he gave you the rarest gift: uninterrupted reception. You learned to hear what others can't. You learned to carry pain like a code. You started to understand that your tears weren't just sadness. They were spiritual data. And somewhere along the way, your soul stopped asking, "Why did he leave?" and began whispering, "What did that silence teach me?" Because silence is a language, and you, chosen one, are fluent in it now. He may never admit it, but he sees the strength you've become. He senses the presence on your life, that silence he once wrapped around you. It's breaking now, not with his words, but with heaven's thunder. Because what was once a void is now a voice, your voice, and it's time to use it. There's something they never told you, maybe because they didn't know, maybe because they were too caught up in their own pain. But it happened, quietly, in a dimly lit room, before his final footsteps echoed down the hallway. He cried, not the way people cry at funerals or in crowded airports. No, this was something ancient, something soul deep. A grief that came from knowing he wasn't strong enough to stay for what you were about to become. The man they say abandoned you wept, because even in his exit, he was mourning his inability to carry what heaven had placed in his hands. Chosen one, you need to understand this. He didn't walk out because of something wrong with you. He walked out because of what was right. You carried too much light, too much destiny, too much presence. He felt it in his bones. Holding you was like touching prophecy in the flesh. And that scared him, not because he hated it, but because he revered it. Some people run from glory when they don't believe they're worthy of it. And in those final moments before he disappeared into the night, he realized something. He wasn't the one sent to raise you. He was the one sent to recognize you. And that was the limit of his assignment. He held the divine for a season, and then the divine outgrew his capacity. You've spent years wondering why he didn't fight harder, why he didn't come back, why he vanished like smoke. But heaven is whispering now. He wept because he knew he'd never be able to explain that your destiny didn't need his presence, only his permission. And somewhere in those tears was a prayer, even if he didn't know he was praying it. A release, a surrender, a silent plea that God would do for you what he couldn't. You think you missed out on a father's love. But what if that love was buried in those unspoken tears? He wasn't made to walk with you into the storm. He was made to see the lightning in your eyes and understand it would outpace him. His tears were not shame, they were reverence. His soul felt what he could not articulate, that you were born with a calling that would one day shake foundations. And if he had stayed, he might have become the cage instead of the catalyst. So remember this, chosen one. Before he walked out, he wept. And those tears didn't fall to the floor. They were caught by heaven, stored like seeds. And now they're blooming in the fire you carry. His absence didn't stop you. It sanctified you. You were never abandoned. You were released. This goes deeper than him, deeper than his pain, his fear, his disappearing act. What happened wasn't born the day he left. It was inherited, passed down, like a broken melody, echoing through generations of men who were never taught how to hold brilliance without crushing it. Look back, not just at him, but at his father and his father's father. Look at the patterns, the silence, the rage, the vanishing, the way they disappeared, not always with their feet, sometimes just with their hearts. There is a fracture in your bloodline, chosen one, but you were born to break it. This isn't just about your father. It's about a curse that was terrified of what you'd become. There's something ancient that's run through the men in your line. An agreement, a spiritual signature, a binding contract inked in trauma, sealed in shame, passed down through anger avoidance, and numbness. These men weren't evil, but they were trapped, raised inside emotional cages, taught to run from pain instead of facing it. And every time one of them tried to reach for more, the curse pulled them back, whispered lies to them like, "You'll fail like your father did," or "You're too broken to raise someone whole." When your father held you, the curse whispered again. But for the first time in generations, something pushed back. You were born as a disruption, a contradiction, a light that refused to be shut off and that terrified the pattern. Because you didn't fit the mold, you didn't shrink into silence. Even as a child, you radiated knowing, the kind of knowing that breaks generational chains just by existing. The moment you took your first breath, the curse knew it was on borrowed time. So it did what curses do when they're threatened. It scattered, it fled, it confused, it sent your father running, not because he was weak, but because he wasn't equipped to stand in the wake of what you carry. Chosen one, the enemy tried to use his exit to keep the cycle spinning, but God used it to stop the spin altogether. Because the truth is this: the curse ends with you. Your voice is the frequency that interrupts the lineage. Your healing is the rebuke to every generational wound. You are the firewall between what was and what will never be again. And though the men before you ran from their roles, you're stepping into yours, not just for you, but for those who come after. You are the interruption the bloodline never saw coming. The moment you entered this world, the pattern shuddered, the timeline twisted, the old agreement started to shake. Because you didn't come here to continue the cycle. You came here to fracture it, to interrupt it, to bring a divine halt to a rhythm of pain that had danced through your family for centuries. You weren't just born, you were deployed. And even though your arrival looked like any other child's, heaven knew it was seismic. The enemy felt it too. That's why the attack came early. That's why your father left. That's why the weight came before the wisdom. Because you are the first of your kind. And patterns fear pioneers. This was never just about abandonment. It was about a war in the spirit. The curse knew it couldn't touch you directly, so it targeted the people around you. It tried to teach you the same wounds they carried. Tried to whisper, "You'll leave too. You'll fail them too. You're no different." But even as a child, something in you rejected the script. You couldn't explain it. You just knew you were meant for something else. That knowing, it wasn't ego, it was encoded. You were born with a blueprint that doesn't match the blueprints that came before you. That's why you felt like the outsider, even in your own family. That's why you were misunderstood. That's why you could feel everyone's emotions like they were your own. You weren't cursed. You were calibrated for higher sensitivity, designed to hear what others silence, to see what others avoid. The pain wasn't proof you were broken. It was proof you were breaking something bigger. Chosen one, you are the earthquake that undoes the old foundation. You weren't meant to mirror the past. You were meant to rewrite it. That's why you never quite fit. That's why their words never fully defined you. Because God planted a different script in your spirit. One that doesn't end in silence or absence or rage. One that ends in restoration, redemption, radiance. But to carry it, you had to lose the comfort. You had to walk alone. You had to feel the ache of what was missing, so you could become the one who never leaves. You will be the voice they never had, the presence they never felt, the father they couldn't be. And this, right now, is the pivot point. The moment heaven reminds you, the pattern ends with you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're willing. Willing to face what they ran from, willing to heal what they ignored, willing to stay when everything in your lineage says, run. You are not repeating history. It wasn't hatred, It wasn't rejection. It was fear. Quiet, trembling, unspoken fear. Not of you, but of what surrounded you. Of what shone through your eyes before you even had language. Your father saw it, chosen one. In moments he'd never admit to anyone, he watched you while you slept and felt something he couldn't name rise in his chest. Not anger, not guilt, but awe. And awe has a strange edge when it touches the unprepared. Some run toward it, others collapse beneath it. He ran, because the light you carried wasn't soft or easy. It was ancient. It was holy. You carried heaven in your gaze before you could walk. He knew it. He just didn't know what to do with it. The world had trained him to numb, not notice, to survive, not sense. And then you arrived and broke all of that. You radiated knowing, not in the way adults do, but in the way prophets do, born already listening. It terrified him, not because he thought you were dangerous, but because he realized he was unequipped to protect what he could barely understand. He didn't have language for what you were, so he fled, and his fear became your fire. Chosen one, this wasn't about a weak man walking away. This was about sacred energy that confronted a bloodline. When he looked at you, he saw every prophecy he never fulfilled, every gift he buried, every dream he let rot. And you were living proof that the divine hadn't given up on the lineage. You were what he could have been, if he had dared, and that realization, it burned, it exposed, it humbled him. The pain wasn't that you were too much. The pain was that he wasn't ready for more. And still, you loved. Still, you waited. Still, you carried that light with grace. Let that sink in. The very thing he feared in you is now what makes rooms shift when you enter. It's what causes strangers to stare. It's what calls dreams back to life in those who've given up. That light isn't just yours. It's your assignment, and it's not dimming. It's expanding. You've stopped apologizing for it. You've stopped hiding it. And because of that, the curse is breaking and the silence is shattering. Your father feared your light, but the world is about to be healed by it. Let them say you were too much. Let them say you were intense, because heaven is saying you are appointed, you are radiant, you are necessary. And the light that made him leave will be the light that makes others stay. It didn't feel like a dream, not really. It felt like memory braided with spirit, more real than the room you woke up in. He was there, not as you last imagined him, not angry or absent, but still watching, standing at the doorway like a man who'd come back for something he left behind but couldn't name. And you, chosen one, felt it before you saw it, that familiar ache, the strange weight of presence without touch. He didn't cross the threshold, he just stood there, suspended between timelines, between who he was and who you've become, and his eyes. They weren't full of answers, they were full of apology. You've had this dream more than once, haven't you? Not always with a clear face, but always with that unmistakable energy, a presence you were once tethered to, now orbiting your life like a ghost, trying to remember how to knock. That wasn't imagination, that was visitation. He's been watching, not in the way humans do, but in the way souls do, from just beyond the veil, drawn to the very light he once ran from. Your awakening has stirred his remembering. Every time you glow, he feels it. Every time you grow, he aches, because what you carry now, the purpose, the voice, the calling, it's what he abandoned. And on some level, his soul knows it. That's why he appears in your dreams without speaking, because there are no words for the regret of walking away from glory. He stood at that doorway, not to haunt you, but to witness you. You've become the version of the lineage that heaven tried to birth through him, but couldn't. and even in silence, he honors it. Chosen one, don't dismiss these dreams. They are more than fragments. They are visitations from the unfinished, the part of your bloodline that never got to complete its mission. He comes not to confuse you, but to confess without words. He watches from the edges of your life, because even in absence, some part of him has always been tethered to your rising, not in control of it, but in awe of it. And deep down, he's waiting for your forgiveness, not because he deserves it, but because your release is what finally sets both of you free. That dream wasn't random. It was sacred. It was your spirit's way of saying, I see you, I outgrew you, and I'm still whole. The child who once stared at the door waiting for his return has become the one standing in doorways of destiny, choosing who to let in, who to release, and what to build from the ashes. He stood at the door because he couldn't walk through. But you've already walked far beyond it. You've asked the question in 1,000 forms. Why did he leave? Why wasn't he strong enough to stay? Why didn't God stop him? But here's the truth. Chosen one, heaven didn't lose control. Heaven let him go, not as punishment, but as protection. Not because you were unworthy of a father, but because your assignment was too holy for the kind of love he was able to give. You were never meant to be shaped by someone half awake to their own purpose. So heaven stepped in, not to ruin you, but to preserve you. Some people leave because God removes them, and that's the part no one tells you. Everyone talks about loss as a tragedy, but in the spirit, some exits are divine edits. Your life was being crafted for a weight your father couldn't carry. His arms weren't built for your brilliance. His soul wasn't ready for your frequency. And God, in infinite wisdom, knew that if he stayed, he would have tried to mold you into something smaller, something he could understand, but you weren't born to be understood. You were born to be unleashed. So heaven allowed the goodbye, even if it shattered you, even if it tore open questions no one could answer, because some absences are assignments. You weren't left to fend for yourself. You were launched, forced to listen harder, feel deeper, grow faster. His absence sharpened you. The silence taught you things the presence never would have. You learned how to talk to God without needing a middleman. You learned how to walk without being led. That's why you've always felt older than your age, isn't it? Why you've always carried wisdom no one could explain. You were being raised by the divine, mentored by the Spirit when man fell short. It hurt. Of course it did. But pain is often the passport to purpose. Heaven didn't just let him leave. It covered you in the process, watched over every tear, translated every ache into preparation. And when the enemy thought it had won, when it whispered, "See, no one stays for you," God was writing a counter-narrative. I never left, I never will. Your father's exit wasn't a failure. It was a firewall, a divine act of disruption, to preserve the purity of your path, because the weight on your life required a different kind of shaping, one no earthly father could have fulfilled. So let this settle deep in your bones. You weren't abandoned. You were hand protected. Heaven didn't allow the fracture to break you. It allowed it to form you. And while the world may pity your loss, the spirit world reveres your survival. He didn't leave because you were unloved. He left because heaven had a different plan for your rising. He thought he left you with nothing. No letters, no wisdom, no safety net. Just absence and silence, like a vanishing act performed without apology. But chosen one, he was wrong. Because even in his leaving, even in his failure to be what you needed, he gave you something unintentional and unforgettable, a gift he didn't know he gave, a spiritual inheritance buried not in words or memories, but in the gaps he left behind. In the ache, you found clarity. In the silence, you found voice. In the abandonment, you found God. The gift wasn't wrapped in comfort, it was hidden in collapse. You learned early how to read rooms without anyone telling you the rules. You sensed tension before it spoke. You translated energy before it formed into language. That hyper-awareness, that wasn't trauma alone, it was training. The very void he created forced you to activate a spiritual sensitivity most people spend lifetimes trying to access. He thought he left you with a hole, but heaven filled that hole with a gift so rare it could only be forged through fire. You became fluent in frequencies, a specialist in soul atmospheres, and deeper than that, you learned how to find your worth without waiting for someone else to name it. He never told you who you were, so God did. And because of that, your identity is unshakable. It doesn't rise and fall on who stays. It was founded in who never left. That's the power he never meant to give you, and yet he did. His departure forced you into divine dependency, and that dependency unlocked the deeper well inside you. This is the irony. He thought walking away would diminish you, but it detonated your awakening. What was meant to break you actually built your resilience, your discernment, your spiritual language. And now, you walk with something he never carried: clarity. You see the patterns, you feel the timing, you carry the blueprint. While others guess at their path, you sense yours in your bones. That's the gift he gave unknowingly, the space to become who heaven designed you to be, untouched by earthly misunderstanding. He couldn't hold your light, so he left. And in leaving, he carved out the room you needed to expand. So don't curse the loss. Use it. Honor it for what it unknowingly became, the birthplace of your power. Because even what the enemy meant for evil, God has used for glory. And though he didn't mean to pass you anything, he did. He passed you space. And in that space you found the sky. There's a message that never made it to you. Not on paper, not in text, but somewhere in the dimension between thought and regret. He wrote it. A letter you were never meant to read with your eyes, but with your spirit. Maybe he sat with a pen in his hand once. Maybe he just rehearsed it in his mind while staring at a ceiling he couldn't sleep under. But it exists. A letter never mailed, never spoken, yet echoing in the silence he left behind. You felt it, haven't you? That strange knowing, like there was something unfinished, something unsaid, something meant for you but swallowed by time. Chosen one. This is the part of the story most forget, the ache in the one who leaves. He may have vanished from your life, but he never vanished from the memory of what you carried. His soul, even buried under layers of fear, still remembered the spark in your eyes, still remembered how it felt to hold the divine in his arms and wonder how he could ever measure up. And even if the words never reached you, they were formed in the ether, a confession, a wish, a plea. The letter he never sent isn't lost. It's just been stored in the spirit, waiting for the right moment to be heard, and you're hearing it now. It would have started like this. I'm sorry. I didn't leave because I didn't love you. I left because I didn't know how to love you right. He would have told you about the terror he felt, the kind that made his hands shake when he thought about raising a child he believed deserved a better man. He would have admitted that your light exposed everything in him he tried to bury, that your presence forced him to confront a lineage of silence he wasn't ready to break. And in his final sentence, there would have been this: I hope one day you'll understand that my leaving wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning of yours. That's the letter heaven kept in escrow, not to protect you from pain, but to reveal it when your soul could handle it. And now you can, because you don't need his words to know your worth. You don't need a letter to validate your light. But still, somewhere in the spirit, His soul wants you to know. He saw you. He remembers. He regrets. And whether he's still walking this earth or not, that vibration of unfinished love is real. You're not imagining it. You're translating it. And maybe the letter never came, but you've become the response. The living reply to what was left unsaid. A message back to the universe that says, I turned the ache into architecture. I built something sacred out of what he couldn't say. There are things that pass through blood without names, things you inherit without anyone ever speaking them. Pain is one of them. So is power. And buried deep inside you, chosen one, beneath the memory of absence, beneath the ache of wondering why, there's something living, a seed. Not the kind you can see with a microscope or chart on a family tree, but something divine, dormant, and waiting. He may not have raised you, he may not have known what to call you, but he left you with something, and heaven intends for it to grow. He didn't know what he was carrying when he looked at you. He didn't realize that within the frequency of his failure, there was still purpose. Because God is like that, able to extract legacy from even the most broken vessels. And though he ran, though he stayed silent, though he missed every birthday and milestone, he still passed something sacred, the assignment he couldn't finish. You've been feeling it your whole life, that strange pull, that unnamed fire, that deep knowing that your life is not your own. It's the seed he planted, the seed he never watered, the seed you've had to grow alone. Chosen one, you didn't just survive his leaving, you evolved through it. And all this time, while people pitied you for what you lacked, they never noticed what you were nurturing, in secret, in silence, in surrender. That seed, it's why the world feels heavier for you. It's why you can't lie to yourself the way others can. It's why mediocrity never satisfies, because something ancient is blossoming through you now, something heaven hid in your spirit before you could walk. And marked with fire once he walked away, you carry the unspoken mission of 1,000 silent fathers. But you are not silent. You are the voice rising from a bloodline that thought it would never heal. You are the answer to a question he didn't have the courage to ask. And even though he didn't know how to nurture you, the divine did. Every heartbreak you survived, every door that shut, every moment you whispered to God in the dark, it was all rain on that buried seed, and now it's rising. This is your harvest season, chosen one. Not just for you, but for every man in your line who died with their gifts still inside them. You are the tree they never became, the shade they never offered, the fruit they never tasted. And as you grow, something in their legacy gets healed. Not because they earned it, but because you carried it. It happens at strange times, doesn't it? Late at night when the house is quiet, in crowded rooms when no one's looking, in dreams that feel too vivid to be random, that flicker, that presence, that feeling that someone is near, but not fully, like a ghost without malice, hovering at the edges of your awareness. You've tried to brush it off, explain it away, but the truth is simpler and heavier. He's watching. Not in the way you feared, in the way souls do once they've realized what they left behind, chosen one. This isn't paranoia, this is perception. You feel him because he's tethered to the version of you he never got to meet. The you that grew without him, healed without him, rose in the fire he left behind. His absence was loud, but his presence now, it's quiet. It lives in the way your intuition sharpens when you think about your past, in the way your body remembers pain that didn't come from this moment but still echoes. That's not just memory, that's soul recognition. Because some people don't have the language to say, I see you now. So their energy lingers instead. His shadow shows up when you rise. When your name is spoken in rooms he'll never enter. When your light touches the edges of what he could have been, he stands there, not to interrupt, but to witness. And no, it's not always conscious. Sometimes it's just his spirit remembering the promise it once cradled and then released. He's not haunting you. He's haunted by the greatness he couldn't stand beside. You felt the pull, the strange ache when you succeed, the whisper in your bones asking, would he be proud now? Not because you need his approval, but because something in you still wants to be seen. And chosen one, you are, not by the man he was, but by the part of him that always knew he left with your light imprinted on him. It's what draws him back to the doorway of your dreams. It's what makes him feel you before anyone else does. Your radiance has become a signal, and even from afar, even from across realms, he feels it. That's why the shadow lingers. That's why sometimes the air shifts without warning, because the man who ran from your light now orbits your growth in reverence and regret. You were never abandoned by the spirit, only by the flesh. And even now, as you walk deeper into purpose, know this: his eyes may never meet yours again. His voice may never speak what you long to hear, but your life is speaking back. Every breath you take in alignment with your calling is a sermon his soul listens to. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It's not pretending it didn't hurt. It's not rewriting the story to make it cleaner, kinder, or more acceptable. No. Forgiveness is a fire, a holy combustion that melts the chain your bloodline never knew how to break. And for you, chosen one, it begins here. Not because he asked for it, not because he earned it, but because your soul can't carry the weight of someone else's wound any longer. You're not just forgiving him for leaving, you're forgiving him for not knowing how to stay. You're forgiving the generations that taught him how to disappear. Forgiveness is how the pattern ends, not in rage, not in shame, but in release. You've walked with this ache like it was part of your anatomy, like grief was just another organ, and no one ever told you that you didn't have to carry it forever. You've made art out of it, made wisdom from it. But now, the story is shifting. This isn't about letting him off the hook. It's about unhooking yourself from the shadows his absence created. Because holding on doesn't bring justice, it just delays your joy. You've done enough surviving. Now it's time to soar. And you'll never reach the altitude God designed for you while dragging the wreckage of someone else's broken compass. His decisions were not your destiny. His silence was not your script. You were never meant to repeat his chapter. You were meant to close it. And closing it doesn't require revenge. It requires forgiveness. Not for him, for you. So your spirit can expand without hitting old walls. So your love can be given freely without checking for exits. So your future doesn't smell like your father's fear. Chosen one, you are the one your lineage has been waiting for, the one with the courage to let go, the one who turns wounds into wisdom and sorrow into sound. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is spiritual warfare. It is what the enemy never expected you to do, because the enemy hoped you'd stay bitter, hoped you'd stay chained. But here you are, standing at the threshold of freedom, ready to declare, I release you, I bless you, I rise beyond you. When you forgive, the curse gasps for air. The loop is broken, the cycle dies. This is your rebirth. Let the forgiveness flow, not as a favor to him, but as a favor to the future you, the one who loves without fear, the one who parents from wholeness, the one who leads without shadows clinging to their heels. This is how you end it, not by becoming him, but by forgiving him. He was supposed to be the guide, the steady hand, the protector at the door of your childhood. But he wasn't. He vanished, not just physically, but spiritually, and still, somehow, you rose. Without his voice, you found your own. Without his map, you drew your own path. You were never given the blueprint. So you became it. The very thing he collapsed under, you stood up and carried, and every step you've taken since then, chosen one, has been an act of quiet rebellion against the narrative he left behind. You became what he could never stay long enough to become. There's power in that, not arrogance. Power. Righteous, humble, holy power, the kind that forms in the furnace of loss. You weren't given the luxury of learning through his love. You were trained through absence. Every time you had to teach yourself what love looked like, every time you had to become the protector, the healer, the steady one, you were building the muscles he never developed. While he retreated from the pressure, you stood inside of it, and you didn't just survive. You became. You became the anchor no one gave you. There were nights you cried for answers, for closure, for someone to say, "You're enough." But when the answers didn't come, you became the voice that answered others. You became the one who stays, who sees, who breaks the cycle by living differently. And even if the world doesn't see the weight of what you've done, heaven does. You rewrote an entire lineage, not with violence, but with vision. Because you didn't need his presence to find your purpose. The irony is sacred. He was supposed to be your covering. Instead, you became a covering for others. You became the kind of parent, friend, mentor, soul that makes others feel seen. You turned the hollow ache into a home. You raised yourself in the spirit. You let God father you. And because of that, you became someone entirely new. Someone the curse cannot touch. Someone the past cannot control. You became what he collapsed beneath. You became what he feared. You became what he couldn't even name. And still, you carry no malice. You walk with grace. That's the real miracle. You didn't just change, you transformed. You didn't just build yourself, you became a lighthouse for others still wandering in their own father-shaped voids. You've proven that pain is not the final author. Purpose is. You were never left alone. It felt like it. Of course it did. When he vanished, when the silence echoed, when the room stayed empty year after year. But something sacred happened the moment he stepped out. Heaven stepped in, not with the shape of a man, but with the weight of presence. You couldn't see them, not always, but they were there. Assignments in human form, divine interruptions, earth-bound angels sent to fill a space your earthly father couldn't, and they didn't need to look like him to protect you. They only needed to carry what he couldn't. Consistency, light, direction, love. Chosen one, you didn't grow up empty, you grew up surrounded. They showed up as teachers, mentors, strangers who said the right thing at the exact right moment, friends who stayed when others disappeared, even the unexpected ones, the coach who saw your fire, the neighbor who checked in when no one else did, the spiritual leader who called something holy out of you. They weren't coincidence, they were cover. The father space in your life was never a void. It was a landing zone for angels. God made sure you were fathered, just not in the way the world expected, because heaven doesn't work through formula. It works through frequency. And when yours started vibrating at the resonance of abandonment, heaven tuned in, realigned your path, assigned guardians. You thought you raised yourself, but that's only because the help didn't always wear labels. The presence didn't always announce itself, but it carried you, protected you, sat beside you in the darkest moments when you thought no one knew how much you were hurting. Someone always knew you were surrounded, even in silence, even in sorrow. The angels didn't just hover in spirit, some of them wore human skin, and they spoke life when you wanted to give up. They redirected you when you almost fell for the trap. They whispered truth louder than the generational curses screaming in your ears. Some of them are still with you, and some, just like angels do, have moved on, having completed their assignment. But you'll know them by how they made you feel. Safe, seen, significant. chosen one, the Father. Space was never empty. It was holy. Heaven filled it with everything your DNA forgot, but your destiny required. You may have been born into a fracture, but you were raised by angels, and not just to survive, but to rise. That's why your spirit feels older than your years, why your eyes hold stories even you haven't lived yet, because the angels carried you through initiations you couldn't name. So now, as you walk forward, remember this. You were never unprotected. You were never unseen. You were never unloved. You were just fathered differently. He may not say it. He may not reach out. He may not even recognize the version of you that now walks with divine clarity and cosmic fire in your eyes. But the day is coming, chosen one. A moment already written in heaven's script, where the man who left will feel the full weight of what he walked away from. He won't be able to explain it, won't be able to rationalize the ache in his chest or the tears he hides behind a hardened face. But deep in his soul, he will know. You became what he could have never carried. And in that moment, the light he feared will become the light that breaks him open. Maybe it will be a video he stumbles across. Maybe someone will mention your name in a room he never expected. Maybe it'll be your voice, rising, healing, leading, and something in him will collapse. Not from shame, from reverence. He'll feel it in his bones before he connects the dots. That frequency, that presence, that shift in the room, it's you, the one he left, the one he watched from the doorway but never had the courage to follow. He'll see you, not as the child he walked away from, but as the force heaven always knew you'd become. And he'll feel it, not regret alone, but awe. Because God doesn't shame those who miss the call. He humbles them through glory. And your life, chosen one, has become a living sermon. Not out of spite, out of purpose. Your rise is not a revenge story. It's a redemption arc, a cosmic reversal that turns sorrow into strength without needing an apology to validate it. But still, that moment will come. And when it does, his soul will finally bow to what his mind denied. Not to you, but to the God who shaped you, the God who fathered you through absence, the God who turned the void into voice, the silence into songs, the pain into prophecy. And as he watches you shine, whether from a distance or in a room too quiet to bear, he will know, that was mine, and I missed it. But you, chosen one, won't carry bitterness. You'll carry blessing, because your shine was never meant to blind. It was meant to illuminate, even for those who couldn't stay to watch you bloom. You'll keep shining, not for him, not in spite of him, but because that's what you were born to do. And in the moment his eyes finally open, he will witness what heaven always knew. You didn't just survive, you fulfilled the prophecy. The door didn't just close behind him, it opened something ahead of you. You didn't know it then. How could you? You were too young, too raw, too wrapped in the confusion of it all. But his exit wasn't just an ending, it was an ignition. The moment he left, something ancient stepped in. Heaven moved, the angels realigned, and the path that had been waiting for your name began to shimmer, because the absence that tried to define you became the birthplace of your becoming chosen one. You were never left behind, you were launched forward. When he stepped out, he unknowingly stepped aside, made room for the divine to enter without resistance, made space for you to find God without filters, without false coverings, without inherited blindness. You learned to trust the voice within, to hear the whisper in the wilderness, to walk with clarity while others needed confirmation. Because your pain wasn't just pain, it was passage. And every step you took beyond what he couldn't give was a step toward what only God could. Your father's exit was never about rejection, it was about rerouting. He couldn't go where you were going. His ceiling would have become your cage, and heaven loves you too much to let comfort become your captivity. So it allowed the fracture, not to punish, but to prophesy, to awaken in you a strength he never tasted, a vision he never carried. You were born to go beyond him, not around him. You were born to become the echo of what he buried, and the voice that breaks what tried to survive in silence. His absence made space for your arrival, not into the world, but into your power. This is your entrance, chosen one. This is the moment where heaven stands to honor the soul who made it anyway, who kept walking, who kept loving, who kept believing when every model of love disappeared. And now, you've become a model yourself, a blueprint, a beacon, not because you had it easy, but because you said yes to the hard and made something holy from it. You didn't just become whole, you became the healing. The lineage was waiting for someone to interrupt the cycle. You didn't ask to be that someone, but you rose into it anyway. You didn't let bitterness bloom where the seed of absence was planted. You became fruit, shade, shelter, a legacy in motion. Your father's exit was never your failure. It was the beginning of your unfolding. And now, the world doesn't just see who you are, it sees who raised you in the spirit. Not a man, but a presence. And that presence, it's still here, still speaking, still walking with you as you cross thresholds he never could. Not to shame him, but to redeem what his absence never canceled. Your calling, your
If you have come
anointing,
this far, it is
your
crucial that
entrance.
you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.